So I'll be about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll go to Brian for the product. So I see some new faces. My name is Leslie Ramsumar. I'm responsible for the Salvador Caetano business in South Africa, looking after the GAC brand. I think it's important for me to tell you a little bit about the Salvador Caetano Group. So we're an automotive group, quite a large automotive group, and I'll give you some numbers in a couple of minutes. But the reason I wanted to just set the context is the GAC brand, the GAC motor brand, and the EMKOO that you're going to drive today is imported and distributed by Salvador Caetano Group. And so we are the importers and distributors of GAC in South Africa. And I want you to spend a minute or two just telling you about Caetano Group. So we do a distribution and retail. That means we import, distribute cars in over 44 countries. We also do IT. The group was founded in 1946. I think some of you have seen the presentation by our CEO, Sergio. Founded in 1946, started as a bus company. We still build buses today. We have about 75% market share in worldwide airports for shuttle buses in airports. We also do IT solutions because we're an auto company. Over the years, we've developed IT solutions. And it's developed to such an extent that we actually sell our automotive IT solutions into the auto market, mainly in Europe. We also have car rental companies in Portugal and Spain. We do ride sharing, ride hailing in some countries in Europe. We do manufacturing. So I know you've heard me say this before. We manufacture the buses, as I mentioned. We also manufacture Toyota. So Land Cruiser pickup that you saw in South Africa comes from our manufacturing plant in Portugal. And we have other businesses. We have an aftermarket business that sells aftermarket parts. We do aftermarket service through our Caetano Express and Midas brand. And we have quite a large used car business in Europe called Car Plus. We do about 15,000 cars a year there. So it's quite a large automotive group, quite diversified in auto itself. So as I mentioned, we're in 44 countries in 3 continents. Our main businesses are in Africa and Europe, and more recently in South America. I'll tell you a bit about some of the numbers for the group. So we have now almost reaching 8,500 employees globally. We distribute the 35 brands that we have in the 44 countries, and we have about close to 250 now. Exclusive facilities that belong to us, either in import, distribution, retail, aftermarket, all of the different areas that we operate in. We are the number 1 automotive group in Spain and Portugal. So when it comes to dealerships, we are number 1 in those 2 countries. We've got a partnership with an American group called Penske, which we partner with in those countries in the peninsula. And turnover last year was 70 billion rand, or 3.5 billion euros. And that's about 2/3 the size of one of the largest automotive groups that you may know in South Africa that does similar things, retail, distribution, import. So a very large company, and we did about 150,000 cars last year. So it gives you a context about who the group is that is bringing GAC motors to South Africa and distributing the cars locally. So let's flip to the brand itself. So GAC Motors actually is like many Chinese brands. It's a state-owned brand. It's the 5th largest brand in China. Last year we did over 2.5 million cars. This year we're aiming for 3 million cars. So really solid brand coming out of China, and I'll tell you a little bit about the history in the next slide. We have 6 R&D centers, really top-class, sophisticated R&D centers. 2 of them are in the US. One is in Milan, in Italy, and the other 3 in China. And the reason we have these 3 outside China, obviously, is to learn and understand the market trends and the market needs for consumers outside of China to grow our international strategy. Our production facilities are really benchmark, and I think once you get into the vehicles, you'll understand why we use words like precision, craftsmanship, and quality, and you'll realize that once you test drive this EMKOO, the car is really top class in terms of its quality. as well. In fact, one of the journalists yesterday on their feedback afterwards said it was the best Chinese car they've driven. So I think it speaks volumes for the quality of the brand. The brand value as well, quite a high brand value, 165 in Fortune 500, ahead of brands like Boeing and Amex. So really strong automotive company. Let me tell you a little bit about the strategy and the history. I think this is really important about how we've ended up where we are now as GAC Motor. So in our first phase, which was the learning phase, when we started the company in 1997, we were actually, for most of those years, or all of those years, we were producing Toyotas, Mitsubishis and Hondas before we started producing GACs. And in that phase, we were learning about technology, about production, about design, about R&D. And you can see around that time, we grew from about 10,000 cars a year to about 250,000 cars a year. Then we had what we call an internalization phase, where we started to then do our own research, our own development, taking from the stuff we've learned from some of the bigger brands we've been producing for, our own R&D. And so that was the kind of the groundworks for the GAC products that you see today. And then from 2020, we started to then develop and produce our own vehicles that you see, two of them in South Africa and many others marketed in China and not available in right-hand drive yet. And of course, as they become available, we'll bring them to the market. So a really strong company and really good sustainable growth. You can see over the year 1998 to 2023, volume growing kind of twofold every 5 years, getting us to the 2.5 million mark. So this is my favorite slide because I'm really passionate about the quality, the design, and the craftsmanship of the products that we offer. It's really state of the art, and we'll have a discussion over lunch, and you can tell me if you agree or not after you've driven the vehicle. I think quality is in the DNA. Every time I have a meeting with my Chinese colleagues, there's not a meeting that goes past that we don't talk about quality. And we talk about quality of the product, quality of the dealerships that we're going to have, quality in the service delivery that we have to offer our customers, quality of our interactions. So it's really quality is in the DNA of the GAC brand. And the components, I know some of you have seen this slide before, but I think it's important that I reiterate, the components that I used in the build-up of our products are world-class in terms of quality. And they are bespoke for the car. So we didn't take parts from other cars and then put this GAC product together. It was researched, as I showed you in the previous slide, all those years, researched, developed, produced, designed for the vehicle that you see today. And when you drive it, you'll see how everything kind of works together, works well together. And of course, being number one in quality, 8 years running now, production facilities have produced number one in JD Powers. We still produce Toyota. We did about 300,000 last year. We still produce Mitsubishi and Honda in our plants, but most of our production are our own GAC products. And last year we won the Unicorn Award for innovation for the GS3 improvement. So we'll be with you over lunch. I mean, enjoy the drive. We'll get a chance to chat. And I see some new faces. If we haven't met before, please let's catch up and spend some time together. Thanks. So I'll hand you over to Brian, but I'm just going to play you a quick video before Brian takes over the product discussion, and then we'll have Q&A after. Thank you. Thanks, Liz. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I think I've managed to greet almost everybody. If I haven't, good morning, welcome. I want to take a pause for just a couple of very quick points. Number one is, as always, appreciate your time here today with us. It's great to see you. Great to have you with us. I know it's been over a couple of times over the last couple of weeks.
Nonetheless, I do appreciate your time and spending a day with us. I also appreciate the coverage that you've generated over the last couple of weeks as well. Through the various interactions that we've had, we've managed to generate a tremendous amount of coverage, and once again, we appreciate that. So thanks very much for that. We have a really nice drive planned for today. We have a very light afternoon. Of course, after lunch, it's straight back here or straight to the airport. So there isn't a hectically heavy program to be done today. We're really focusing on the drive. We've got a lovely drive out to a halfway stop, drive a change, come back to the lunch venue. Lunch venue is about 40 minutes away. So it is a good opportunity to spend some time with the car, to engage with some of the features that I'm going to share with you now. Also to enjoy some of those attributes that Leslie was touching on a little bit earlier. And of course, we'll see you at lunch as well, and we can catch up there. But I want to talk about a couple of attributes of the EMKOO, which of course we're introducing today and giving you an opportunity to drive. I want to start with the design. I'm going to first just look at some of the dimensions on the car, give you some context as to where the car sits in terms of segment size. So you can see length of 4.680 meters or 4,680 mils if you prefer. Just short of 4.7 meters, puts it squarely in the top end of the C SUV category. So it's really one of the biggest C SUVs. I'll show you some of the internal dimensions in a couple of slides' time. Also 1.9, so just over 1.9 meters wide, just short of 1.7 meters high. So C SUV, but really at the top end of where C SUV is at that 4.7, just shy of 4.7 meters. We're going to start with the front of the car, talk about some of the features and attributes on the car. Of course, these are GAC motors, eye of enlightenment headlamps. What that means is they're obviously LEDs, 32 LEDs on each side. We know that LEDs are 25% brighter than traditional lighting on a motor car, of course contributing to safety at night. Your safety in terms of what you can see, and of course your safety in terms of how you can be seen, of course daytime running lights as well. We have illuminated sequentially on the LEDs, so one of the nice things of having 32 LEDs is you can do various things with those lights. The welcome tone when you approach the car and unlock the car, or approach with the proximity unlock, it does give you a nice welcome tone, both front and rear. Really a nice note, and I'm able to do that with 32 LEDs, individually controlled LEDs. In addition, we have two EMKOO variants, Executive and Executive Plus. Executive Plus has intelligent high beam control, essentially the vehicle's ability to dip from your main light beams to your dip beams without any driver involvement, of course also contributing to your safety in terms of the drive, putting it back on high beams when you perhaps lost focus for a moment, and dimming it automatically when it detects oncoming traffic. Moving around to the side, of course the most recognized and most, I think, instantly notable is the electric flush door handles. So door handles in your driving position when they're locked are completely flush with the body. Of course, they are electrically opened. Once you approach the car, it does have proximity unlock, so there is no need to push a button. If the key's in your pocket, the car will unlock as you approach. Of course, lock as well when you move away from the car. You can also choose to switch the electrically operated door handles off, so you can choose to operate them manually if you so desire. In addition, on the side of the car, Executive has 18-inch wheels, Executive Plus, which you see on the screen, and we're going to be driving today, has the 19-inch wheels. And then I want to just highlight a couple of points on the car. Of course, we have the front. The front is slightly lower, the rear is slightly higher. This body attitude accentuates the fastback shape. It gives the car an air of dynamism, even when standing still. But most importantly for me, certainly, if you look at the double waistline design that we have on the car, you'll see lots of straight lines on the car and lots of curves on the car. If you were with us for MZoom, you would have noticed as well. So almost in contrast, or almost in rebellion perhaps to the current trend of very rounded edges, very soft curves on cars, EMKOO and MZoom both have very straight lines, very angular lines on the car, really differentiating them from what is available, and once again accentuating that ground-up design for the GAC product, EMKOO in this particular case. You would have walked rather past the cars, you would have seen them as you came in, and I think you can see those straight lines and angles as you rose back again to drive them this morning later. Moving around to the rear, So LED lights as well at the rear, of course, 128 LEDs. Of course, we have that lightsaber inspired tail lamps, the X shape, instantly recognizable from the rear, integrated as well with the mecha style spoiler at the top of the roof, mecha style spoiler with the third brake light mounted in it, dual exhausts in the bottom, in the bumpers, also rounding out the rear of the car. So once again, emphasizing the angularity. If we look at how the lights stand out from the bodywork, rather than simply be integrated into them, they're a feature as well as functional. We have 5 colors available on EMKOO. We have all 5 colors here today, of course, for you to look at, to sample, to take pictures if you like. All of the colors are metallic colors, so even the Snow White is a mica style paint. You can see the change in color. Particularly if we get a little bit of sun later, you see the change in colour of the white as well as the silver, through to the Starlight Green, Bright Moon Grey, and of course Starry Night Black, also available. And in bright sunlight, you can see some of those are really crystals in the paint, just giving that different tone from a different angle. I want to talk about some of the tech as well that's available in the car. Before I do that, I want to start just inside the cabin. We've had a look at the outside, give you a sense of the inside of the cabin. There's a couple of things that are very important that were key to designing the car. I'm going to start just up here with the air vents. So air vents are inspired by aircraft vector thrusters. If you're familiar with aircraft that have vector thrust, you'll see, and you sit in the car and notice them almost immediately. If you're off to the motor show, at the air show this weekend, you'll see them as well. Vector thrust inspired air vents, accentuating, I think, the level of thought that went into the detail of the interior of the car. And then the proliferation of circles around the interior cabin. Circles are very important in traditional Chinese culture, signifying gathering, excellency, and wholeness. A circle, a perfect circle, of course, has no beginning and no end. Throughout the cabin, you will see circles on the sides of the air vents, on the side of the floating center console, on the door handles as well. Very important inside the cabin to make sure that it's a comfortable place to be as well as a functional place to be. Taking a slightly wider angle look at the dashboard, starting up at the top here, we have a glass roof, non-opening glass roof on both versions, so Executive and Executive Plus. You can see from the screen almost a full square meter of sunlight or moonlight, depending on your proclivity, that you can allow into the cabin of the car. So that because it's a non-opening roof, it is completely visible. You can open that full 0.96 square meters of roof with the sunshade, electric sunshade. Multifunction steering wheel, of course, so we'll talk about that in a moment. The rotatable thrust vector inspired air vents in the center. And then, of course, our 10.1-inch touchscreen as well, standard across the range. Obviously, an HD touchscreen. All of your key functionality controlled from your center screen, your climate control, your various settings for the drive of the car, as well as, of course, your infotainment. And then, continuing the circle theme, throughout the car, the rotary style door locks. So also in contrast to almost everything else that's available in the market, particularly in this segment, is that rotary style door lock. Once again, ensuring that the cabin, while functional, remains an attractive place to be. So the multifunction steering wheel, as you would expect, has a host of features. Of course, you'll get to drive the car and you'll feel the tactileness of that car with the leather wrapped steering wheel, with the stitching. It also has some chrome elements. So in contrast again to that soft touch leather, we have some hard chrome elements on the steering wheel. We can control our audio controls, volume, etc. We can control our adaptive cruise control. So on the steering wheel functionality, we can set the adaptive cruise control, of course reset, increase the speed, etc. Also set the distance that we want to follow on our adaptive cruise control. And then we have a programmable button on the bottom right hand side of the steering wheel. So programmable button can do a couple of things. You can choose what you want it to do. You can set it to do a full 360 camera on the screen. particularly useful if you're in a difficult parking spot or you're near a pillar, for example. As you slow down, push the button, it gives you a full 360 degrees straight away. You can see where you are relative to obstacles and other cars. In addition, you can set it on the Executive Plus to initiate the self-parking function. Choose your self-park, let the car do the rest. And then you can connect it to a particular Bluetooth phone as well if you have a preference to override. So lots of functions on the steering wheel as one would expect. Moving to the center console, we have of course the wireless charger in the center console on both versions. Also have wireless Apple CarPlay as standard on the car. In addition, we have Car BitLink, which can be connected wirelessly. So and with an Android device, Car BitLink is a downloadable application that you can download from the Google Store, and you can link it either wired or wirelessly. It allows a complete screen mirror functionality, and by complete screen mirror functionality, absolutely anything you do on your phone you can mirror onto the screen. You can check your Outlook, for example, check your emails, your schedule, as you would want to. The cars that we're driving today have both of those options, of course, as standard, but we've also added an Android Auto box. If you prefer to use Android Auto, simply connect to the Android Auto box in the car. You might need to do it once you've moved out of the parking, because there's going to be 10 other Android Auto boxes sending out a Bluetooth signal. So maybe move out and you'll be able to find that Android Auto box, connect your Android phone seamlessly to it. So both of the vehicles have obviously some driving assistance features. Some of the functionality standard across both of them. Some of them available on the Executive Plus, which we're driving today. Just before we talk about the level 2 autonomous driving, a couple of functions that we have on the Executive Plus. We have, of course, the 360 camera system, which I mentioned you can program to set, but also available, of course, in reverse. We also have the self-park function, completely hands-off self-park function. Allowing the car to obviously park itself. We have heads-up display on the Executive Plus. So heads-up display, I'm sure most of you are familiar with. Heads-up display gives you some of the key information that you need when driving the car. It will have your speed or road sign, speed recognition displayed. It will have your speed. It has, of course, if you set the cruise control, adaptive cruise control as well, it has that set. It can show you some navigation functions. And what's really nice for me is it shows the range left on the tank. So a nice function on the heads-up display. Also can be set, of course, in terms of your brightness, in terms of the angle that you are comfortable with it. We have keyless start. So I mentioned we have a proximity lock and unlock. We also have, of course, keyless start. The key ultimately never needs to leave your pocket. You can, however, also start the car remotely. So if you want to start the car remotely and set some of the climate control functionality in place before you get in the car, you can start the car simply by taking out the key, pressing a couple of buttons, and you can start the car up and it will set the car to a temperature you've preset. Of course, using the auto aircon function that I mentioned. In addition, the center screen, of course, controls your driving modes. So you have 3 preset driving modes: economy, comfort, and sport. In addition, though, you are able to set a couple of different attributes in those various modes. So, for example, if you enjoy the steering feel of the sport, where it is very direct and a little bit quicker, but you like the economy or the throttle's responsive comfort, you can set the car in comfort and change the steering to sport. You can also change the throttle response. So maybe you like the steering to be very light in comfort mode, but you want the throttle response to be a bit quicker. You can customize it to have a more radical throttle if you prefer. So 3 standard driving modes, but you are able to customize them to your preference. So the Executive has both vehicles, of course, have the 10.1-inch touchscreen. The Executive has the 7-inch cluster. The Executive Plus that we're driving today has the 10.25-inch LCD instrument cluster. On the 10.25-inch LCD instrument cluster, you're able to set a couple of things as well, so you can change what's shown on the screen. Really useful if you're using adaptive cruise control, level 2 adaptive cruise control with the blind spot assist, lane keep assist, etc. So you can have that as your primary settings. You can change it to suit what you're looking for. Of course, also shows you your tire pressures, shows you your fuel consumption, and as we saw with M-Zoom, shows you your tire temperatures as well. In addition, the Executive Plus, which we're driving, has the ambient light control on the interior of the car, so you can set the ambient light to your preferred setting. You can also set the intensity of the ambient light, and of course you can set it to match your driving mode, where you can go to red in sport, for example. And then the Executive Plus, as you can see on the screen at the moment, on the left-hand side, Executive Plus has the built-in light show option. You have to be in park, but the car will give you a light show. Once again, I think just emphasizing some of the versatility of those LED lights. So very important from a safety perspective, but also from a convenience perspective, is level 2 autonomous driving. I'm sure that most of you are aware level 2 autonomous driving is the ability to set your cruise control, your adaptive cruise control, maintaining the distance from the car in front of you, but also to maintain your position in the lane. L2, of course, necessitates that we keep our hands on the wheel and our eyes on the road, but it does take care of a lot of that functionality, reducing fatigue over a longer drive. Both versions of EMKOO have level 2 autonomous driving assistance, and you are, I'm sure, more familiar even than I am with the various acronyms. Of course, we have the lane change assist, which will work in conjunction with the blind spot detection, making sure that when you change lanes, it's safe to change. Lane keep assist, which will actively keep you in the lane by means of input on the steering wheel. Integrated cruise assist with the traffic sign recognition, of course, will change your cruising speed in response to the traffic sign recognition if the speed limit drops. Rear cross traffic alert is the ability of the car to detect vehicles that are approaching when you're reversing out of an alley docking style situation and a car is coming across from the side. You can set it to give you an audible tone. You can also set it to give you active braking on the car. Door opening warning is using blind spot detection. When you're about to open the door on the side, it will give you an audible warning as well, letting you know that it's not safe to do so. There's traffic that's coming from that quarter. Forward collision warning and autonomous emergency braking, of course, fairly self-explanatory. In the event of a critical situation where you fail to apply the brakes, the car will apply the brakes for you and assist you with the maximum amount of emergency braking. So level 2 autonomous driving is great to have, really nice to have in terms of security and in terms of convenience, but arguably more important is the ability to control it. So you can see through the interface on the screen, we have the ability to set and change the settings on some of the level 2 autonomous driving. So if you're a bit like me and you really don't like the car keeping you in the lane, you can switch that off. If you don't want to have the blind spot warning you when you're crossing a lane and there's a car there, you can switch that off. So you are able to control some of these adaptive cruise or some of these autonomous driving controls very simply through that very visual interface. In addition, you can change some of them to go from actively keeping you in the lane, for example, to giving you an audible warning when you're in the lane. So lots of safety features, lots of convenience features through level 2 autonomous driving available on EMKOO Exec and Exec Plus. We're going to move on to talk a little bit about the drivetrain of the car. Of course, we'll start with the engine. EMKOO is powered by the same 1.5 turbo petrol engine that powers the MZoo. We have, of course, dual channel turbocharger, the water-cooled intercooler with a completely separate circuit, so completely separate cooling tank, completely separate whole cooling circuit for the intercooler. A water-cooled intercooler, of course, I don't need to tell you, allows for far more efficient use of the turbocharger, keeping the turbocharger cooler, as well as the dual-channel turbocharger technology. It allows for a much faster response time, and allows for a much more efficient response time, and better longevity in terms of both of the components. So the GCCS, Leslie mentioned a couple of times how GAC have taken their own steps in terms of developing technology. GCCS is GAC's proprietary gasoline combustion control system, of course using all of that technology and the water-cooled intercooler, the dual-channel turbocharger, as well as the high-pressure direct injection in the engine, controlling all of those attributes to make sure that the engine operates as efficiently as possible. What that gives us is a fuel consumption of around 6.4 liters per 100 kilometers, with 130 kilowatts of power available and 270 Newton meters of torque available. So a really efficient engine developed exclusively, the Mega Wave or Mega Power engine developed for GAC by GAC for use in GAC. It's matched, of course, to a 7-speed wet dual clutch gearbox. Dual clutch, we know, is far more efficient, far more reliable, very quick response time. This is a wet dual clutch, so it's constantly lubricated, also allows for a higher level of efficiency and offers superior riding comfort on gear changes. In addition, very quick gear changes, so gear changes up to 0.2 of a second in the 7-speed wet dual clutch box. So that is our gear changer. Our gear changer has the crystal texture, the cut crystal texture in the center, obviously, of the console. That crystal texture as well, a gear changer is functional, but it doesn't need to just be functional. So also a really elegant contribution towards the ambience of the interior of the car is that diamond cut crystal texture gear changer. Staying in the interior for a moment, I spoke about the size of the car, just a couple of key points on the car. The rear floor is flat, once again, so it gives you amongst best-in-class rear space for your passengers in the rear, and I encourage you to do the sit behind yourself test in the car. Have a look at how big that rear space is, facilitated by that flat floor. In addition, the boot size at 638 litres is generous. If you're so inclined, by all means, check the boot space as well. Looking at you,
I will worry.
Center screen, of course, as I mentioned, controls all of your climate control functions as well. Executive Plus has the addition of both heated and ventilated front seats, as well as power adjusted and memory seats. So your leather interior is standard across the range. On the Executive Plus, which we're driving today, we have electrically operated seats, 3 memory positions for those seats, and that memory position can be linked to the key as well, so you can link your key to your memory position in the car. Keys are instantly identifiable, they're different color keys, so you can link your memory position to your seat, unlock the car and set to your position. In addition, you can set the cooling and heated seats to the smart setting. Here on the right hand side, smart setting will adjust the seat to whatever your climate control is set to. So you don't need to go into a separate menu, put it on smart, make it a bit cooler, and it will switch on the ventilated seats as appropriate. Conversely, if you set it to higher, it will switch on the heated seats as appropriate. So that obviously works in conjunction with the climate control system. Climate control system also state of the art in terms of the filtering that it does. The climate control system is rated up to an N95 air filtration system. N95, if you remember a couple of years ago, was the ultimate in COVID masks in terms of keeping particulates out, in terms of keeping some germs out at the time. So when set on automatic recirculate, it does have the capability to reduce the number of contaminants inside the car. Talk about safety. We mentioned already some of the level 2 autonomous driving, the active emergency brake, the lane keep assist, etc. It doesn't just end there. Of course, it has a full house of airbags, 6 airbags, 2 in the front, 2 on the sides, as well as monolithic side curtain airbags. Side curtain airbags retain inflation for 6 seconds to make sure that they're able to do the job that they're in there for the required length of time. So after deployment, they will remain inflated for 6 seconds. This is the side curtain airbags, making sure that they do the job that they're there to do. Of course, it's not just about airbags and level 2 autonomous driving. If we look at the safety compartment, the passenger compartment of the car, you can see it here represented in purple. The passenger compartment is made of ultra high strength steel. The MPAs or megapascals between 980 and over 1500, so we can see 18%, that's hot stamping steel in the passenger compartment. 1500 megapascals, I had to look it up, is equivalent to approximately 15 tons per square centimeter. We spoke about platforms, and Leslie mentioned some of the GAC technology. So MZoom and EMKOO both on the same platform. It's a GAC platform. It's the global platform, modular architecture. Both cars are built on the same platform. The platform is bespoke, was built by us, for us. We're the only ones that use it. It's a GAC platform, of course, matched MZoom and EMKOO. I also want to mention on the EMKOO that we're driving today, and across the Executive and Executive Plus, of course, McPherson independent suspension in front. Also, very importantly, multi-link independent suspension at the rear. So some of the roads we're driving on today are less than ideal, and I'm sure that you will take the opportunity to experience that multi-link independent suspension at the rear. We can catch up, obviously, at lunch with your experience in that regard. I want to close off with just some of the features on the car. So on the left-hand side is EMKOO Executive. Of course, a lot of the attributes that I've mentioned already standard across the entire range. Everything that's on Executive is on Executive and Executive Plus. But I want to just remind you a couple of things. Of course, the LED headlights, as we mentioned, the electrically hidden door handles. We have the 10.1-inch touchscreen in the center. And we have all of the level 2 autonomous driving available across the entire EMKOO range. So EMKOO Executive with the 18-inch wheels. If we move across to the right-hand side, Executive Plus, which we're driving today, as I mentioned, gets the 19-inch wheels. It gets the electric tailgate. So electric tailgate can be opened in 4 different ways. You can open it, of course, from the button on the tailgate. You can open it from the driver's seat. There is a push button that you can open it. You can open it from the key as well. And you can set it to open if you stand there with the key in your pocket for more than 3 seconds. It will give 4 brake light flashes and it will open automatically so that you don't stand in the middle of a parking lot waving your foot around like a lunatic, potentially. Just stand there, it will open it automatically. Executive Plus also has intelligent high beam controls, as I mentioned earlier, the self-park functionality, heads-up display, the heated and ventilated driver's seats with the memory, interior ambient lights, the light show presentation, which I'm sure we will have the opportunity to show you a little bit later, and the 10-inch instrument cluster. Pricing on Executive at $599,900, on Executive Plus $659,900. The range, of course, standard with GAC 5-year 150,000 kilometer warranty and 5-year 100,000 kilometer service plan. So I'll pause there for some Q&A if you have any questions. If you'd rather engage, of course, one-to-one, I'm here the whole day. We'll spend the time. We have Karaba hiding in the back, our product manager as well. Save the tough questions for him.